Emotional money. What does that mean? Let me explain. About 6 years ago or so, I was driving to work and I was listening to a YouTube video, and I don't even remember who put the video out. But they said something in the video that really shook me to the core. They said that you needed to divorce your emotions from the money. And that was so foreign to me. I was 30 years old at the time, and I remember thinking, how do you divorce money from emotions? Because they go hand in hand. At the time, we were dealing with huge credit card debt, upside down in all these just different financial aspects. And it was so emotional. And so I thought, how in the world do you pull your emotions out of something that is just seems unsurmountable? It's so big. It seemed bigger than all of me. And the more I thought about it, and I thought, they might be onto something. And I remember driving into work that day, and a friend of mine who I worked with, a coworker of mine, he had some similar financial issues. And I remember going into work and talking with him, and his name was Chance. I said, Chance, I think I might have figured out one of the key reasons why I've made a lot of the dumb decisions that I have in life. And I went to explain this concept of not being emotional with your money. And I remember him just saying, I am lost. I don't see what you're saying. And we were on so separate pages. He was on the page that I used to be on, and as of that day, I was on this different page. Like, I flipped the page that day. Well, I remember when I was a kid, watching my parents struggle financially, and I remember watching emotions be so tied into finances. I remember when you got paid, the Friday that my dad got paid, they were tied into finances. Because, well, could we pay our bills that Friday? Could we keep the lights on? Could we buy groceries? And the way I grew up, I realized, carried on into my adult life. Through my teens and 20s, I carried on into that aspect of money came in, and now I'm happy. Money went out, the account was low, and I'm sad. Now, you might think that this is a very simple concept, but I urge you to hold on to what I'm saying with this. Listen to everything that I'm saying, and we'll wrap this all up together. So hold on to the end of the video. But I remember thinking that if your account is, let's say you have $10,000 in it, and you say, okay, I've got a decent amount of money in here. This is bringing me pleasure. This is bringing me security. This is bringing me happiness. So what do you do when you have $10,000? Let's just say it's not a large sum, but it's enough for most people that you feel comfortable for the next month or two, paying all your dues, all your bills. So what decisions do you make? Well, for me, the decisions that I made when I had some money in the bank, $5,000, $10,000, felt like I was high on life. Made me happy. It brought my emotions into a different state. Well, to know a little bit about me, you'll know when I'm in a good mood, what happens? I spend. And a lot of you guys do the same thing. You tend to spend because you're happy. You pass someone on the street. You pass a little Girl Scout cookie stand. You're in a good mood and you want to spend $5, right? You want to spend $10. You want to support them. Nothing wrong with that. But now you don't have $10,000 anymore. Now you have $9,990. Now do that 1,000 times, 5,000 times. You're at negative. You're at zero. Whatever the case may be. Now, all that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But now let's look at the other end of the spectrum. Okay? When you're at zero and the electric bill is due by Friday, what decisions do you make? You make irrational decisions. You tend to take and say, oh, we've got a fire going on over here, a forest fire. We got a little fire going on over here. This little fire over here, I think I'm going to take care of this first. But you got a blazing forest fire over here. And I'm using that as a metaphor by saying maybe the electric bill isn't the bill that actually needs paid. I don't know. Your life might be different than my life. But maybe there's another obligation. Let's say you've got an electric bill and you've got a mortgage. Both are due on the same date. And the mortgage isn't really calling you. There's no creditors. It's just due. But it's due at the same date. It's due Friday. But this electric bill, they're calling you nonstop, hounding you, saying, pay this bill, pay this bill, pay this bill. If you don't pay this bill, we're going to shut your lights off. And it's 40 degrees out, and you guys are going to be cold. Well, what in that scenario happens if your emotions are involved? What do you tend to want to do? Logically, which one should you spend your money on? And logically and emotionally, which one do you spend your money on? Now that's an extreme example, right? 9 times out of 10, all of you guys are going to be able to say, yeah, Noah, you're going to pay your mortgage, because if you don't pay your mortgage, you're going to get kicked out of your house, and your electric bill doesn't matter. And if you pay your electric bill, your mortgage won't matter, and vice versa, right? So logically, you can all say, yes, that's the right decision. And it is. You always want to make sure your mortgage is paid over your electric bill. But let's step back and let's look at all these other micro decisions you make throughout life, and all these other micro decisions you make in the day-to-day when your emotions are involved. When you go to the grocery store, when you're in a good mood, do you buy the name brand thing? A lot of times, yes. When you're in a bad mood, what do you buy? Sometimes you buy non-name brand. But my point in saying that is, if you allow your bank account to dictate your emotions, then your spending will be directly correlated to that. It's such a simple concept, but it is harder in practice. You see this everywhere. A lot of people can recognize this concept and say, this makes sense, I do this in practice. But do you really? Because there's a stat out there, I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere in the nature of within 5 to 10 years, almost every single lottery winner will be down to zero and then some, negative. They'll be having debts. Why? That's such a crazy thing to think about, that you're handed 10, 20, 30 million dollars, and 5 to 10 years from now, it's all gone. Well, why would it be all gone? Because you would be in a really good mood and you would be spending. And then, once you get close to zero, you start making these irrational decisions of, oh, well, maybe I need to go get in debt here to pay this bill. Maybe I need to do this, get bad debt. And there's nothing wrong with debt. Bad debt is bad. Debt that the assets don't pay off the debt. That kind of debt is bad. But when you make irrational decisions based on your bank account, that's what gets you into trouble. And that is what got me into trouble for years, 30 years. I made emotional decisions when it comes to my finances. And I'm not going to say that I don't do it now. I don't know that there's anyone out there who doesn't do it. The difference is you need to recognize that you do it, and then you need to recognize that you can change it, because the first step to change is recognizing that you have the problem, right? So at that point, when I was 30 years old, I thought, okay, so how do we implement this? Now I recognize this is a problem. Don't look at my bank account and it has $100 in it and start saying, I'm going to start making irrational decisions because I'm scared. Fear is your enemy. Satan's, one of his main weapons against us is fear. You know, the Bible says that God is not the God of fear. So you can be sure that if you are afraid, unless you are afraid of God's judgment, which can be a good and a bad thing, but if you are afraid of the day-to-day, you are afraid of, you don't know how you're going to provide, you don't know how you're going to pay this bill, you don't know how all these different components are going to happen, it's not a good thing. Kick it out to the curb. Anxiety, fear, if you let it rule you, your life will end up in shambles. And I can be one of the first ones to admit that. When I let emotions take hold of my finances, I made some really, really dumb decisions. At the point that I realized that my emotions needed to be uninvolved, about 30 years old, that's when things changed for me. That's when I started looking at investment decisions. I started looking at those bills and saying, okay, Maybe we don't have enough money to pay them all. Which ones actually need paid? And that is a hard place to be in, because I'm a very duty-filled person. If I made a promise, I intend to keep it. And when you sign up for that product or service to purchase it, you should do everything in your means to pay that product or service. And that's the way I feel. But if you've got 10 bills, all equaling up to $1,000, and you've got $500 in the bank account, shame on you for only having $500 in the bank account. But I've been there before. There's circumstances that are unforeseen that maybe made you have only $500 in the bank account. And maybe you overspent by $500. Who knows? But regardless, you're there. What bills do you choose to pay? What decisions do you choose to make? Where do you spend your money? Where do you choose to invest? Do you spend your money on, let's say you want to invest, right? Can't even keep my cigar lit. I'm not smoking enough. Let's say you want to invest, okay? And you want to let your emotions be involved in your investment decisions. And your thing is puppies. You love puppies. Puppies are the cutest little thing. But you don't like cats. You hate cats. If you look at, on paper, two investments, this cat business over here you want to invest in makes complete sense on paper. They carry low debt, they have high profit margins, everything is right in this cat business you want to invest in. But over here, you have this business that's running, that's all about puppies. And they are holding huge amounts of debt that doesn't make sense for the business. Their profit margins are really low. There's not very much market in the industry for puppies, let's just say. But you really love puppies. I really, really like puppies. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to invest in puppies. It's so funny to think about when you step back at an angle like that. You say, why would anybody do that? That's dumb. Why would somebody invest in something like as silly as a puppy business as opposed to a cat business? But we do it every day. We sit there and we spend our money, we invest our money on things that we like, and we hold back money from things we don't like. But I propose to you, take your emotions out of that decision and you say, man, I really like puppies. That's pretty cool. But this cat business, will, if I invest my hard-earned dollars into this cat business, it will bring a return better than this puppy business. And then maybe I'll have some more money that I can go buy some puppies. That's an interesting concept. Maybe you'll have enough cash that you can go do that thing you really love. Do you know how many decisions that I made emotionally that I thought were right decisions at the time of like, I'm going to invest in this business because that's what I like doing. There is a thing out there, not a thing, but a movement. There is a concept, and you hear all these gurus saying it, is to do what you love. Invest in what you really like. Now, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater on that statement, because I think that when you're invested, when you do something you really love, you do it well. So hear me out on that. It might be that that's the direction you need to go. But it may be that you're going in the direction of what you really love, and that's not the direction you should go. But you're going in the direction you love. And that direction could be falling off the cliff financially. I did a lot of things emotionally. I had a lawn care company, for instance. Used to have a lawn care company with my brother. And I really liked doing lawn care. I ended up leaving that company from him, got into commercial printing. And when times got tough, I decided to start another lawn care company. Nothing wrong with that, right? Sure. But why did I start that lawn care company? Well, you could say, well, it was because something you really loved. Or you could say it was because it was a skill you already knew. Or whatever, the myriad of different things. But I look back on it now, and ultimately, I didn't look at if there was a bunch of people in this area that needed lawn care. I didn't look at my competition. I didn't look at the stats of what I could be charging. I didn't get down to the nitty-gritty of whether or not I needed to start this lawn care company. I ultimately started it because it was like, I liked mowing lawns. So, may as well. Everything around that, running that company, was wrong. And I look back on it now, and a lot of it was my inability to know how to run a company correctly, know how to market, know how to sell. I hated salesmen at the time. So it's like, how are you going to sell a product when you hate people that sell? It doesn't work. But ultimately, it wasn't the correct business for me, and it wasn't the correct business at the time. But I fell into it because I really liked mowing lawns. I kind of still do. It's fun to me. I like the mowers that are involved, and I like everything around it. But it wasn't the business that I needed to be in. There was other businesses that better suited my skill set. And so what did I do? Did lawn care for, I did lawn care with my brother from 14 to 18 full-time, and then to about 19, 20 part-time. Quit lawn care from 1920 to about 22, 23, and did lawn care all the way till 30. It was not profitable. I'll just say that. It was not something that I made $1 million on, and I did not pay the bills well with it. So if I were to have look back and redo all of that, what would I have done differently? I would have looked at it and said, I like doing lawn care, but let's run the numbers and let's see if this makes sense. And if I would have done that, I would have looked at it and said, this does not make sense. Maybe lawn care is the thing for you 10 years from now. And maybe lawn care is the thing in a different city. And maybe lawn care is the thing that you run and someone else operates. Who knows? The options are endless. But what you did in that time frame was wrong. And that's just one thing amongst hundreds of thousands of decisions that I made financially. But in that, when you're in that, trust me, I know from experience, when you're in the trenches, when I was in my mid-20s and I'm sitting here working my tail off doing lawn care, and then I'm working at my full-time job, so I'm working 2 full-time jobs really, and I'm not getting ahead, and you're frustrated and you're saying, why in the world am I doing this? You don't realize that everything is wrapped up around those emotional decisions. I stayed in commercial printing for 10 years. When I got in commercial printing, I saw at 18 years old, I thought this is the thing to do. But after 18 years old, I saw the writing on the wall that I shouldn't be in it. I would say probably about 20 to 21 years. 2 years in. I wasted approximately 8 years of being in an industry and not leaving. Why? Fear. I was scared of leaving. Emotions. I was worried, well, what if I couldn't pay my bills? You know what bills I had back then? Living with a roommate for $150 a month and food. That's it. So I was eating a lot of ramen, macaroni, cheese. Not even because I had to, I just liked it. Making $30,000 a year. I thought I was high on life. Spent all my money on cars. Everything just went into cars. Cars and anything else I wanted to do. Would that have been the time to pull your emotions out from your financial decisions and say, let's go find another industry to work in because I feel like I'm high on life at 30,000, but I saw the writing on the wall that I was going to cap out at 40 to 50, and to hit $60,000 a year, it was going to have taken me, I saw it back then when I was 20. I knew it was going to take me probably 15 years. It's probably going to be 35 to 20 years, to 40 years old before I was able to make $55,000, $60,000. But instead, I was afraid of leaving. I was afraid of not being able to take risks. And now I look back and it's like, that was the perfect time, the absolute perfect time to take risks and jump ship. You had $150 that you had to pay rent and your food. You could have gone and worked at McDonald's as a burger flipper and paid that easily. But fast forward 10 years to 30 years old when I had something like 4 kids at the time. Now is the hard time to take the risks. So I challenge you in this. This is what I started doing. Every time I spent $1, it doesn't matter what it is. Every time I spent $1, I started thinking, what are my emotions in this dollar being spent? And where, no matter what, that's buying McDonald's, that's paying the electric bill, that's investing in puppies. What are my emotions in this, and are they the right emotions to fall into? Now, have I made dumb decisions since I understood that concept? Absolutely. Have I made a lot of them? Absolutely. But being aware of the issue, it helps you to grow, and it helps you to start down that pathway. It helps you to understand that process. And that's where it starts. You have to start somewhere. You can't just go from having financial illiteracy to all of a sudden you're just this financial guru. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did. But that stat of the people that are winning the lottery are broke 5 to 10 years later is living proof of that. If someone hands you all this money and you don't have the financial education to hold on to the money's going to be gone. That was a hard thing for me to admit to myself. Because for me, I always thought that the money in the bank was the problem. But it's not. Newsflash. The money in the bank is not the problem. Your mindset is the problem. The money in the bank will follow your mindset. It will follow the mindset because of the decisions, the micro decisions and major decisions you make on the day-to-day life. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. My name is Noah Gordon. We'll see you next time.